Okay, my name is Chris Wong. I'm the design manager at MASDAR City. MASDAR City is one of the units at MASDAR. MASDAR itself actually comprises of several units, not just the MASDAR City itself. There's MASDAR Carbon, there's MASDAR Power, there's a MASDAR Venture Capital, and of course there's the MASDAR Institute. MASDAR itself has a mission to help assist Abu Dhabi in its road towards a sustainable future. It's promoting Abu Dhabi as and leading it towards a knowledge-based industry. The UAE is in this interesting situation. So, being primarily an oil-based industry, this is something that the UAE wants to address. And one of the ways addressing it is through the MASDAR, it's the MASDAR initiative. I'm a design manager. I'm an architect by background. I joined MASDAR in early 2008, and my responsibility is basically to manage the design process for the various buildings at MASDAR City, so taking it from its concept designs all the way to construction documentation. What I'd like to talk about is very much what we have been continuously learning at MASDAR when it comes to the subject of facades and facades design. We're realizing that its contribution to a sustainable design is that it is a very important component to fit into a much larger picture. So at MASDAR, we heavily promote the integration of facade design within the rest of the design process. Probably far more so than you would for a regular building. Just for example, we do address over and above the normal issues related to energy and lighting. We still spend considerable amount of effort just talking about the materials used, the carbon footprint related to these materials. In terms of selection of materials, not only how it impacts the inside of the building, but very much part of the MASDAR City concept is how the facade actually influenced the outside of the building, the microclimate of the building. I mean, what you see and what you feel as you walk past the buildings. And all these elements are just as important, and the solution is in the balance of these various parts. Again, it's back to this thing about seeing facade as an integrated part of a bigger picture. MASDAR has in place a very comprehensive design review process. At each of the design milestones, we have an integrated workshop. We bring into the room many specialists and many disciplines, where we create an open forum to discuss all the issues that's related to all parts of the building. And of course, facade design always figures very high on the agenda. I'll just give you an example. I mean, within the same room, not only you have your traditional project managers or construction managers or design managers, and people involved on the development side, economics, but we have a team of specialists. I mean, we have people who address the energy issue, we have people addressing the supply chain, we have people addressing the water and the water balance, we have people addressing the waste and waste handling systems. So it's a much broader audience, and all these people have an impact on the various design. So this integration is where we try best to make a difference at MASDAR. Probably the most important thing is early on you need to establish what the end game is. I mean, what is your final goal, and what are you trying to get out of this? I mean, the fact is that sustainability has different meanings and different definitions to different people, and each one of us has to define his own definition, which from that comes the goals. So you need to establish where you want to get to, and then you can sort of begin to build up a team, and a team of all the all possible stakeholders, and set up a forum of how to tackle these issues. One of the things that we've learned is, one of the most challenging things we've learned is that we understand that through design you can only go so far with the sustainability story. There's a human factor, there's a human element to all this, and it's totally related to education and awareness. And so this part needs a special effort just to make people understand, and the more people understand the end game, the more chances you will succeed. Probably the most important thing is back to understanding the bigger picture, understanding why you want to promote sustainability in the environment. Of course, we always talk about the commercial aspect of sustainability, but when you talk about the commercial aspect, it's important to think of the bigger picture. Current ways of assessing economic values probably needs to be expanded. I mean, how do you put the value on creating an environment that is healthier, so that people coming to work, they enjoy themselves more, they spend less days off. Having healthier people means lower medical bills. There are a number of intangibles that are difficult to measure using current metrics. So again, understand the bigger picture and try to understand some of the intangible benefits of sustainability. The cost benefits absolutely is important to everybody, and it's important to MASDAR too. We do not proceed with projects, and we do not proceed with certain technologies if the financial returns does not make sense. And so this is a given. We live in this commercial world where we need to balance these things up. All we're saying is that also recognize some of the things that are intangible. You could say some of the things that come free of charge when you establish some of these models. There are various ways of measuring these, but again, I mean, when it comes to intangibles, there's always a level of subjectiveness. So costing comes at several levels. You've got your return on your bottom line. You've got your internal rates of returns, right? And then you have your life cycle costing, and we do a carrot life cycle costing on all the elements of our building to make sure it does make sense. But during this conversation, we do recognise those elements that do bring benefits. Not necessarily put a number to it, but we want to promote the idea that sustainability benefits is not the front line, bottom line return, even though those things are important at the same time. The way I see it is, it's not so much a question about financial viability. I think the facade is such an important element that one has to spend some effort in developing this area. I think there is a perception that when one talks about facade, one immediately thinks about things like curtain walling or certain cladding system. And of course, compared to maybe some more traditional methods of construction, yes, it may be more expensive. But one should think about facades in the wider context. Think about it as the skin of the building. It's a separation between the inside and outside. It's what protects you from the elements. I see the role of the future facade designer is not just someone who happens to be a specialist in curtain walling system. He truly understands, the relationship inside and outside, and what this building's skin is doing. Maybe then you move on and you don't talk about facade design, you talk about envelope design. And what about the roof? I mean, facade designers tend to just think about the side skin and not about the roof itself, but that is just as important. So one could start developing, and the traditional facade designer can expand their scope to be an envelope engineer, for example. And once you have envelope engineering, you can think of ways, be it a high-end luxury development or a low-cost. The principles are still the same, and the principles still have to be applied, because it's the same energy that you're using, regardless of you're doing a top spec or a low-cost housing estate. If I was sitting in our audience, I would love to hear a conversation about the practicalities of the design and the related processes of getting designs through. I think very often you get a situation where the designers end up not getting something they want, and you get the developer or the client also gets something that they want, because the solution seems to be hovering in between and is not suiting everyone. And I think it comes down to a lot to do with communication, and that's why these forums having are such a good thing. Let's break down the barriers and talk openly about what each side is thinking about. It'd be good to air some of the problems and frustrations that people may have. If designers have certain perceptions about developers, let's air these and let's talk about it openly and understand the requirements from each side. And that was a big conversation I like. Because I myself, I have been a consultant before. I have been on the other side of the table. So now I'm sitting on both sides of the table, and it's an eye-opener being on either side. And it always comes down to communication. And it's also the misunderstanding of what the weight you give to certain subjects. So, in summary, I think we need to align the agendas. I think that's, and even though this is an age-old problem, it is in very many occasions it's still not resolved. And when it does get resolved, you can see the results. I mean, I think you can walk around the city and guess which one where this relationship has been resolved. And when you read about the most successful building, it always evolves around the good designer and client relationship. Always. At MASDAR, with some of our consultants, have actually had some experience in investigating certain technologies and new technologies. Like many new technologies.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time. This was a very good conversation, and I'm sure it's going to benefit the audience and the people of the sustainable community. In parting, would you like to say something to the sustainable construction and facade community at large?
Yes, just one thing. I was asked a question about MASDAR, and the question was, what if MASDAR fails? And my answer was, what do you mean by fail? Well, fail if you don't achieve your targets. And my answer to that is, the only form of failure we know is if you don't get started. We've started.
That's a fantastic answer. Thank you very much, Chris. I look forward to meeting you at the event as well.
Thank you. Yes, just one thing. I was asked a question about MASDAR, and the question was, what if MASDAR fails? And my answer was, what do you mean by fail? Well, fail if you don't achieve your targets. And my answer to that is, the only form of failure we know is if you don't get started. We've started.